everyone, here doing update number 3 on Project 200. It's came quite a way since the last time you guys seen it. So it's got the twins mocked up, all the hot sides built, still needs finished welding, but it's getting there. Intake's in here. A few things that we ran into though is if it's gonna fit underneath the hood. So we're still looking at a few things for the hood, but we went with as low as an intake as we thought we could, and it's still gonna be tight because if you guys know, a lot of people run the Holley high ram, so it'd be even taller than this. Or you could have went with, I guess, a single plane with an elbow, but those still even get fairly tall. So we're still gonna figure out some of that, but the intake's pretty cool. It's a shear fab intake, and then trying to get everything else mocked up in here. Radiator's in. We're just looking at some of that on how the lower radiator is going to work. Probably have to put like a 45 on it. As you guys can see, the car does have AC, and going to have to run all the lines there. End up coming up through here, and then ended up building a little carbon fiber piece that lays right here, and then you can lay the lines on it. So
kind of like this right here.
So everything's going to roll through there just like that. Keep everything protected.
Come up.
And it goes into there, so then that will go into the inside of the car. And on the interior, I got the Holley Dominator mount here, and then right up here, ended up getting this mount here is for the retro air. It's like a air kit, resto mod air kit, and then so right through here. This is like, it's all bed liner, right?
Yeah, bed liner, and then we put, it's called lizard skin as well, because it's supposed to help with the drop at 20-degree temperature. So it's a ceramic coating lizard skin. So hopefully it works. I've heard from other guys that have tried it. Everybody usually puts it on the bottom side. I don't like to clean on top of this stuff, so my stuff's all smooth with POR. James can get a shot of that. POR'd the whole bottom of the car, and then even the trans tunnel's got the gold reflective heat shield on the bottom side of it. Because this seems to be where we get a lot of our temperature into the cars, is all from your automatic transmissions.
Yeah, so it's got a Rossler 400, as you guys seen before, and I can see if I can get it. The mock-up tranny's in there, but as you can see, all the gold is up in there for the heat retention. And so the bottom side of the car has been all coated, and then the frame's all been painted as well. And the whole front suspension's all painted, everything's finished up there. Brake lines are ran. I can show you guys on the other side where all the brake lines are there. And then, as you guys can see, the removable door bars are there. That wasn't in the last video. I'll have to grab one and show you guys kind of what it does, but more or less it'll bolt in here and here, there and there. A lot of cages have like a swing out door bar, but this will actually bolt in, so you can completely remove the door bar and jump in and out of the car. So if you're actually out driving the car, say it's winter time, you're not really racing it much, you can pull the whole door bar, the door X out of the car, and then just drive it around without having to crawl in and out of the chassis. So pretty cool, something different we haven't really seen in another car. So here's the X here.
I just got them back from getting powder coated.
So they've all been powder coated. The cages are painted.
There's a slight difference in it, but I'll probably have to clean it a little bit.
Clean some powder coat off to get it to fit in there. But
yeah,
in a sense, you guys get the idea of how it sits.
Like it'll pop right into
Right
place. There. Pull it in, pop the stuff in. Just make it a little easier going to and from car shows when you're not really out racing it.
Yeah, so if you're doing things like drag week or race week or anything, you're going to be in and out of the car a few times, filling up, driving around, you just pop them out and keep them out, or leave them in and climb over them too. But just a nice little thing that you don't get tired of climbing over it if you want to go drive it for a while. So the rear end's all in the car as well. Got everything pretty much finished up in here. Yeah, if we can put a light up in here. And then everything's been painted, kind of getting everything finished. As you guys can see, there's some power lines coming out. It goes right over there to the little charge plug. So hopefully you don't have to charge the car a lot, but it's there. It's kind of clean, keeps it hidden right below the parachute mount. then in the trunk of the car,
There's some.
so we'll go over this too and kind of explain what we got going on here. But here's the, you guys can see it a little bit better. So last time we were looking at it is on the table, all the 3-link suspension that's been built sitting in here. We ended up adding the Pro jacks to it. So we were thinking that you could use some other different jacks for such a low car, but this is gonna work out. Just as you guys can see, there's the 3-link. So still gotta get some finishing bolts to finish everything up and do some of that, some suspension stuff. It's all here. We're gonna end up adding a drive shaft sensor to it, get the drive shaft, well the drive shaft's here actually, it's all here, get the brakes mounted. You guys can see the sway bars all mounted up in here.
Still gotta get the wishbone.
There's the sway bar. So this wishbone still needs to be put in and installed, and all the shocks, the coilovers, and everything still need to be installed and all that. But otherwise, it's coming along, getting closer with trying to finish everything too. So here's the ice, water, fuel tank, and then it's a lot of things. We're kind of hoping for what were you thinking, like 10, 12 gallons we figure?
Yeah, I'm figuring on the fuel side, I've at least got 10 gallons. I think I can probably squeeze more into that. Near as I can tell from capacity, I'm right about 10 with a little bit of low level, maybe upwards of 12. It's kind of one of the things you can do all the figures you want, but until you actually put some fluids in it and measure them, it's kind of where you're at. I'm hoping I have about 7 gallons on the, which this should be pretty easily on the water side. There's a seam actually right here.
You guys can kind of see it.
From the,
So this has all been coated with the ceramic as well to keep
it from sweating.
Yeah.
So many problems, especially when you go back east or lower elevations where you get the a lot of humidity. The ice cooler tanks they always want to sweat so bad. They just pour water off of them. So you always got to carry towels. Not that I've done away with that, but this does tend to help. From some of the other cars I've worked on, been around, this seems to help. But I went ahead and added the ceramic coat, so I'm hoping that even gives a little bit more stuff. You know how this industry is, everybody's trying
something different,
something new, something to try.
Well, and also instead of trying to add a ton of weight to the car too.
Right.
So that's with part of the like the bed liner and all that in the car is to help kind of the tinginess of the car without adding a ton of
weight.
The weight with the dampening and the
I didn't want to add all that, what they call it, dynamat stuff. To me, that just seems like it's so heavy for what it does. They say it does, but there again, this is outside of my wheelhouse for trying to get something where it's not rattling so much going on the road. Most all my stuff's been drag cars or bikes where you got noise, you don't worry about it. But here I'm trying to come up with something where I can try to cruise it somewhat comfortably and take the wife in it, go enjoy it, go do some stuff, and not vibrate our teeth out of our head.
Or listen to every little rattle and ting.
The rocks beating and stuff. We undercoated the bottom side. We also undercoated the front side inside the thing. It'll have all the carpet pad, carpet inside of it. Went with a real thick carpet pad, so it's supposed to really help with some of the dampening too. We sprayed the lizard skin on the roof. That's some of their claim. It's supposed to help drop some of the temperatures from the outside to the inside, 20 degrees and this and that. So we're trying
to get some amenities and nice, not so hot and everything else without just adding a ton of weight to the car.
Right. We modified the Decklid hinge. I still use the main body of the hinge. This is still the mounting points for the stock hinges where it lined up. As you can see, when to put the wheel tub in for the oversized tire, I had to move it in. So I moved it in, made my own bracket for the hinge, used that portion of it, brought this up. Now I've got the shock stabilizers that go up to the deck lid.
Yeah, they're quite a bit longer shock stabilizers than...
Yes, so they're quite long. But sometimes when you start doing this, you're under limitations. I tried a little small one, but I was so pinched with area, I wasn't able to get my angles. Well, it wouldn't hold this, it wouldn't support the weight of the deck. I didn't have enough of an angle out off of the...
It's a huge deck lid.
The lid, yeah. The deck lid is incredibly
it's like a
heavy.
small hood.
on these things. It's amazing how much weight there is to this Decklid.
So that's some of the idea too, is so you got your 16 volt battery, it's all 16 volt. And then on the water, that'll all run up. You guys can kind of see it right there, where all the lines will kind of run up through the interior. And then kind of deciding on, the car will have carpet, gonna hide it under the carpet or put it above the carpet and all that. But so this will pretty much be all open here, because the plan is to possibly, go drive it. So if you need to take a small suitcase or you want to take some tools and stuff in case you got to work on the car, any of that stuff. So you tuck some stuff up in there. So this right here is going to end up being the two fuels. So you got your drive pump and then you got your race pump. So on here it's both Aeromotive pumps, right?
Yes.
So Aeromotive 340.
340 in the tank. And then this is their 5.0 drop-in tank version that they make this one a lot for, like your basically stock drop-ins for your Mustangs, your Camaros. They use a lot of this pump in for all your anything aftermarket, I guess.
So it looks like there's a lot going in there, because and there is, because you got two pumps. You got your little drive pump, the big race pump, their fuel neck, and then over there is your sending unit for a gauge. So, and then all of them are return style. So they're all going to feed into the same, and pretty much after the Y right there, it's going to be on the same system, but we have to have a way. So that's something we've been talking about, is how do we want to turn one on, turn one off, and make sure that we're good. That's where you start kind of running into some things that you leave them both on, or the one would kick on with boost, but you don't want to even run the risk of trying to put the car into boost with the little pump. So little pump driving down the road, it's designed to drive long miles. You don't want to put just crazy miles on how much is that pump?
5.0 pump.
Yeah, but it's like a $700 or $800 pump, right?
No, $1,500.
$1,500 pump. So you don't want to just kill the longevity out of your pump for just driving. So you might as well drive on the little pump and then have the big pump when racing. So we're talking about trying to turn one on with the Holly through boost and all that, but we'll just have a way where it activates the other one. We'll have to do a switch. He's still trying to come up with how he wants to do that.
A switch. So when I do my ball valves, I'll probably work a switch and grounds. One way it'll be the small pump. You manually flip it up, which could be a kill, I guess. And then you go the other way, that'd be your race pump. So vice versa, you manually got to do it. There's really no way around it unless you really want to put a lot of faith in it. I'm still pretty old school, so me putting a lot of faith that something mechanically changed upon the chance that it did. I've burned up enough shit through my racing career relying on my electronics, relying on this stuff, which we all do.
It should work.
It should work. In all theory, it does. I've had times that it don't, so therefore I still like to manually.
It's hard to rely on a $5 part to...
Right. Turn one on, turn one off, because there's a lot of preparation. When you're going to go out and do that, we're going to be changing the fuels anyway, put a C16 in it. Unless I happen to be racing the night before when we go to one of these events, it'll have already been done. But still the same, it's still going to have to be drained from the pump gas. So you're going to be back here. Like when you do that, put the C16, that's when you'll flip the ball valve, flip the switch, you'll just run on this here. It's plenty good to run around at the track. You're just circulating so much fuel so fast that it wants to heat your fuel up. That's the reason for, plus you'll burn this thing up running down the highway for a long time just because everything gets so hot. So.
What else are you thinking? Anything else going back here? That's pretty much it, huh?
Well, I do have my relay panels.
Do you have those? Where's those things at? I'll show them. So there's this, I'll show you guys this. So there's this little deal. It's pretty cool. MSD. So
solid state relay.
Yeah, so it's a solid state relay. So it's more or less 4 relays in one. As you guys see, like power in, and you have relay 1, 2, 3, and 4, and then there's little lights on here, right?
Yes, right here.
Yeah, so you'd have your little lights too. Let's see if you guys can see that pretty. So kind of a cool little piece that hopefully will help clean up a bunch of wiring. So you just have one of those mounted in the back of the trunk, and then run all your ground switches and everything off the end.
Yeah, well, we can switch it by ground or we can switch it by hot. So you can switch it either way. You can wrap these up, they're all 20 amps. So if you need 40 amps to power something, then you'll use 2. Like I'm figuring both these right here will be powering my fuel systems. So in here will power my water system, and then this here I have a spare for in my trunk. So if I possibly run the tranny cooler in the back up underneath the car, then that's when I'll pick up this one here, just so it'll have a remote fan on it, just for another action off the back. Yes, super clean.
Or if you don't use one, if you have one
wires
that goes out, it's that fast to move a wire from here to there, and then move your wire from here to there, and then
yeah, that's the purpose for the troubleshooting on the your LEDs right here. They'll let you know kind of where you're at, what's going on, if there's something not working.
So super clean way. This is a really neat deal. So there's going to be one of these in the back of the car and one of those in the front of the car. For what are you thinking on that? Like we'll have
one for the starter. We got the starter, trans brake. What else was it we was talking about? I possibly the fans up in the front, but I might even just put their relays clear up front for themselves. If not, I'll add another one of these as well up into the front, just
something to use. It's much cleaner.
Much cleaner. I don't have gobs of wire. You don't have. It's just.
They have like a little mount that it slides in. It uses right here.
Yeah, two little bolts hold it back, so it's real simple, clean.
So that's kind of a trick little piece that we ended up getting for this. So water pump, Mazir water pump. That says 16 volt battery. What's the reason for 16 volt, I think?
It's easier cranking on your stud. You just carry the power. It just gives you, to me, it's been through my racing stuff, it's a lot easier on all your parts, your stuff. Everything seems to run a little cleaner, a little smoother. It's definitely on the starting side of it. More voltage out of it helps us to crank the cars up.
Helps the pumps under the high load and everything.
Yeah, everything
too.
Just maintains a lot longer, a lot more consistent and stuff by using it.
So that brings up an issue. So on the 16 volt, you need a 16 volt alternator. So here's a mount that we had. This is a dart block, and then ended up going with the Corvette. He ended up ordering like a F-body water pump. But what was the issue? Why couldn't we run that?
The throttle body dumps.
Oh yeah, so the shear fab throttle body right here. The neck on the F-body pump is up higher, so it runs into it. So you have to run a Corvette type pump, or you'd have to do like an electric pump, but driving it, you want a mechanical pump. So
yeah, and the truck style might, because it's a little further over and up. I don't know. I'm not into the. I don't know if the truck will or not. We went with the Corvette, so I could
gain as much room for the turbo and fans and everything.
So this is our alternator. Looks pretty much like their standard alternator casing. So really it's not the alternator being the 16 volt that's the problem.
It's the Corvette. So
it's the Corvette moving it back onto here with the dart block. And,
and even on a regular block it rubbed up here, but then on the dart block there's this big oil galley right there. So it must be that the dart blocks are set up for like an F-body type alternator, because the back, I looked on my car, and the back of the F-body alternator is right about with the face of the block, so it'd probably fit right here in this pocket just right. But with the Corvette, it sits much further back.
So it's back into the I could, I guess, put it on there.
No, it's all right though. But so what he ended up doing is just adding on to here, so it just swung the alternator out away from the block a little bit. It just pivoted off of here and moved it this far.
Yeah, this
so
was
quite a bit of a difference.
This was the closest. Up here, we was gonna have to come off a long ways, like it was ended up being.
Yeah, if you're trying to still
like
tuck
this
it up
far
in there, it'd be way off. Yeah.
And stuff. It was almost like half as much again, and stuff. So this swung it over. Also ended up going with a bigger pulley they recommended, because at the high RPMs that we're planning on spinning, we had to change the pulley on the alternator to slow it down, so therefore it doesn't reach over capacity.
So you don't start burning up your alternator and everything going when you're racing and all that. So the engine's a 427 LS Next Dart SHP block based. Thompson built it. It has a Dart 8-weight billet crank, Wiseco boost line rods, and I believe diamond pistons in it. Trick flow 245 cathedral port heads. Everything's been half-inch drilled, half-inch head studs, so this thing should hold a ton of boost, but we got to throw a bunch at it to go 200. So that's kind of the base of the build. It should be good for, I think Thompson rates at like 1,800. I know the rods are good like 2,000. Tons of people have been crazy fast on trick flow 245s, and it seems kind of like the old faithful head that everybody runs and makes tons of power with and doesn't run into issues or anything. So kind of a tried and true way. The new dart, something that's kind of cool with the dart deal is if you don't know what a dart block, any of the LS Next, it's still a full skirt block, but it's like a big block Chevy main. So it's something kind of different. Priority main oiling system, a little bit different design from a regular LS. The engine does have all TRD rockers. It's a hydraulic roller motor. Decided to go, everybody that I know or that I've watched or anything, not everybody, but more than most, I guess, when people start going to the solid roller motors in the LS's, I've seen a lot of issues. Breaking valve springs, just things not working right, and just not as consistent and doesn't live as good from what I've seen. So pretty much, not like the baddest, but close to as far as hydraulic roller LS's go, that's still simple without getting into anything like crazy custom or anything. So
yeah, that's where they said they rate that 1800 is about where they figure the valve train is good too. Then that needs to change, and then that's when you step up, and then we'll
start going to big cams and all that. But then you start getting into where if you're really wanting to drive it, you'd have to stop and reset your valve train and check all that. So this should be a fairly low maintenance setup, hopefully. That's what the plan is. So hopefully it works really good and be able to drive it, and all it needs to do is go 200, right? So as you can see here, all the brake lines have been done. Got the e-brake. It's kind of cool. I'll show you guys that here in a second. But the dual e-brake that comes back ties onto the calipers. Haven't put those on yet, but they're a bright red caliper. Comes up, kind of a race car design here, putting the master cylinder in the floor, and then all that'll tie to it. So then it's right here. So you're thinking about building like a little cap?
Yeah, I got a carbon fiber cap. It's just same. A lot of this stuff's adaptable. I've adapted over just because I've used it so much in the past on building my cars, and I know it works. It's easy to use, but it's just a cover. Zeus is on. Once the carpet's in here, the cover will just fit on here, so I can pop it off real quick if I need to check the brake fluid, stuff like that. Up here I brought the line up in here, so all my sending unit is up in here. James is gonna show it. So brought my wiring up into it. That's for my brake pedal, my brake lights in a sense.
It'll tie on there.
Or if I want something else that's gonna, switch it and stuff, that's where I'll pick it up inside instead of running all my wires to the outside. I've kept everything inside that I possibly can so far.
Yeah, so and then here's the seat mounts. The seats are getting all done. Kind of crazy deal here in the back. The back seat, it will have a back seat built back into it, but it's just it's in a sense a reverse of what you see, right? The back seat's gonna kind of just be molded into what's there.
Yep, that's the back seat. It's pretty much still right here, and then it'll have some drop in. Bottoms, the hoses will come out, drop down, drop underneath the bottom. There's a fire system. Fire bottle sets on that side. I'll clamp my CO2 bottle on this side, so that way I've got more of an access for me on this side and stuff. Relatively pretty simple car in a sense. Still takes gobs of hours to build them.
And parts.
Parts has been some of my...
Whether it's fighting to get them here or constantly just keep
modifying them.
Ordering parts, modifying parts like the alternator mount. There's just a lot of things that go into it. I guess when you change one thing, it affects a bunch of things. And
yes.
you would think that things would bolt together and come together a little bit easier than it does, but it doesn't. I guess, I mean, you've built a bunch, and every car does it, it seems like.
Yeah, this is a thing that guys are always up against. I've heard it before, and I've seen it, where guys get their cars in and they're stuck in a chassis shop, or we won't even talk about paint and body shops. That's that's a nightmare. That's paint and body shop prison. But just like this here, so they get it in, one guy wants to change one simple thing. It's not just as simple as usually bolting it in, pull it out, unless it's the exact same part that's already been modified. Then you can use the pieces. But it's like this, we put the shifter in, I make my own little deal, so it rotates, it sits back, wraps around, cable drops in the bottom. That's all the simple stuff you don't really think about until you're building it, so it accommodates all the pieces. Like the cable will come down, wraps under, drops under the floor.
And to still have a finished car.
Right.
Like when that's fine. If it's race car, you just pop a hole and drop. But when you're trying to finish the car to where it looks done.
Right. It's a whole nother thing, and I'm not even taking it as far as some of the street rod guys take it.
To try to hide everything.
Yeah, to hide every single thing, because yet I'm still wanting to work on the car, so I'm not wanting to rip carpet completely out of the car. I'm not wanting to go digging and searching for stuff. I'm hiding as much as I can, but yet I still want to be able to work on the car, because I am planning on trying to race it and do some of that stuff.
Where's the e-brake?
The e-brake?
So you guys can kind of see, I couldn't find it because it was covered in paint, but so that's where it's showing you on the bottom side, the e-brake, all that stuff comes up in ties, so then it'll be right down by your feet. So you just kind of reach underneath the base of the seat right there, and then it's got a little handle that'll come up and tie in right here with that deal. So it comes right up in here and ties in there. So real nice, clean, and keeps it simple. You can see the pedal mount here where it goes through the chassis there. And it comes up and has the aftermarket pedal there. Yeah, so here's just a little e-brake handle. So just kind of sit right behind it, because your seat will come out to about here.
Yeah, here's the front. Here's my front seat belt, crotch strap. You got your normal belts. Here's another seat belt mount. Here's the other one. Everything's kind of hidden in, so I don't have tabs. It's actually a standoff off the frame in the bottom, so everything ties in. This one's off the rocker. Everything's all hidden. Seats up here, I got access underneath it, no different than any given seat.
But as you can kind of see, it's not near as bad. If there was a video, if anybody's been in a car that's had it's all tin, it's super teeny, but.
And it's once I bolt the seat down too.
Yeah, once you get some stuff in the car, some carpet, a little bit of padding, everything.
The seat belts will pull it down.
It's much better than when it was just raw material though. So there's the fun part, twins, twin turbo 7675s, Precisions. These are Gen 2s with the stainless exhaust housing. Went ahead and upgraded for all that stuff, so it will fit as tight as we can get everything to fit. It's definitely a nice piece. It looks a lot cleaner than like a cast piece. So it's all V-band, everything. But ended up looking at a few headers that some buddies had, some in here, some in clear up here, but nothing quite where we needed it to be. We were gonna build the headers back we were looking at originally, but then there was nowhere to add like the wastegate or anything. So, and then also
not efficiently, so it doesn't try to cut the air off.
Yeah, so if anybody's done turbo work, like here's not a good place for a wastegate. You wanna go here, so the air flows into the wastegate. Prioritizing the wastegate makes a huge difference. No matter how big your wastegate is, if the air don't flow into it well, it's not going to go anywhere. So ended up building a whole set of headers. Were they pretty even side to side, or they ended up changing up?
No, they're pretty even. That side over there ended up having to drop it back, because believe it or not, the head is further forward on the driver's side, so you don't even think about it. The exhaust flange is further back. Go to that side, heads are opposite. Heads move back, but at least the exhaust
right up close
port is actually moved all the way to the front. See, it's just another thing you're thinking about. Well, you can't think about everything.
Trying to take as much as you can into consideration.
Right. So then you try to make it fit. And the object was here, I had to try to keep it. I knew I had to be as even with the hood, or the head, just because of the simple fact, so that I can get this here bend in here. So it's a tough.
And he was talking about earlier that he could have made this tighter, but then it ends up getting back into your header.
Then you get so
and then
tight,
it'd be hard to get back up to the turbo.
And you end up coming up higher. It ends up coming up where you have to make a tighter. It actually bounces this up because of the rotation of what you got to put in here.
Unless you start pie cutting everything.
Right.
Trying to keep it all clean.
And God knows how I like the pie cuts.
Yeah, totally against the pie cuts.
Not a fan.
And as you can tell, it's so clean and nice looking now that it fits. But so here's the rest of it. Is it looks like it's close to done, but it's not even close to done, because we still got to fit some intercoolers in here.
Yeah, this is the plan where being the intercooler. This just kind of gives you an idea. This is a clamp off this one, but I'm going to cut this space out. I bought a couple of Precision 1000 intercoolers, My intent is to drop it, or actually in a sense bring it from the bottom. So I'm going to cut a hole, or I might have to cut the whole thing, bring the whole intercooler up so it's going to sit in front of the tire. One of them will basically come from the pipe. This is all intent, like this is our plan.
It sounds good.
So it's going to come over here, wrap down, come into it. Then the other one, it'll come out of it right here, wrap up, turn. This is going to come across right the front.
And then these will be merged in together.
Yeah, this can be a merge. Then I'll have to put me a rubber coupler here on the front just to tie in. If it all works the same as that, that'll be great. But we all know once you start building something, it changes something to change to something else. You can try to think of everything you've got going into it, but some of it's just trial and error.
We spent probably 2 hours the other day holding pipes up just to figure out how this little area will work.
Would possibly work, but yeah, you still don't know. So then you're laying there at the middle of the night, 3 o'clock in the morning, you bang awake, you're scared to death that it's not going to work. You got to try to come up with all these other ideas, but yet you haven't even put a single piece of tubing into the car. But that's the way our minds work. You've already ran over it a million times. Come out, actually start doing it. It actually works out. It gets a little tight. I've got the suspension completely collapsed. So this would be worst case scenario.
This is if you bottom the car out.
Yeah, you'd have to hit a curb. You'd do some, which you're going to look at some other damage. But this way I take it, because if you went into a rolling, like a driveway, one tire might be collapsed at the given time, as the other one's going to be extended. You know, when you're going through a driveway or something like that, very seldom are you ever going to, I hope I never bang a curb or go out through the swampland or something because the brakes failed, but hey, it happens. But if so, then I'll be fixing a lot more stuff. I've repaired cars before being nasty. But so this one here, so I collapse the suspension, then I just take and I turn it to where I figure it's going to.
That's pretty much locked. Well, that's not quite.
That's completely collapsed. And well, you could get it where you're going to be completely tight against the steering, but there again, you don't turn like that.
Yeah, like how often will you be completely bottomed out and completely locked with the wheel at the same time?
Yeah.
Other than if it's something happens.
You're going to have some other problems. You're highly unlikely this is going to be just in a driving scenario.
So then it rolls back around the other side. And here's another part that's not quite figured out, is the exhaust has to come out of there and get around the tire.
Yeah, well, I bought a pretty sure it's gonna, I've got these here, I've already
kind of get an idea.
I've had them up in here. They fit. They wrap around, which it'll set here tight, come down.
Kind of draw it through
it'll
here.
Turn and come out underneath the car right here. Going down the road, that's way here, if I'm at the track, and probably make some bull horns to put on it, or going down the road, I'll probably do like Larry Larson does on his truck. I've watched him, I've helped him with his truck. It works pretty good for going on the road. At least it gets the exhaust back behind you going down the road. So make a slip on real nice, couple of bolts fasten on, quick and easy. No problem that way. This is my biggest thing right here. So what I'm doing, this is tight and normal driving, it will clear. I mean, this totally collapsed. I've still got some room. I'm away from it.
Yeah, so the tire should sit quite a ways down. As you guys can see, it's totally collapsed. So worst case scenario is the way we're trying to look at everything.
The only place it starts getting a little tight is when I start turning in. Then I get only about this far.
Which isn't much, but again, how often are you going to turn?
Collapsed
all the way.
But I think I've got this figured out, because what I did is I ordered a 3.5 inch stainless donut. This is 3.5 inch exhaust. It's basically 3.5. This opening, it's 3.5 in between it, and then it comes back. So I use
circle right there.
Yeah, it'll be pretty tight. Wrap back around, then I can get back on the side. I won't quite use 180 degrees of it. Drop it in further, and then I can drop straighter down, which will gain my tire clearance to go in. But it's all part of these things we're up against.
So sometimes you got to smash it or do something, and whatever you got to do, you got to do.
And I figure I will. I'll probably still will, just for clearance, for the possibility. I've done the collapsed exhaust numerous times. It doesn't hurt them at all. It doesn't seem to have any effect on the performance part of it. And there again, we're not talking completely crush it down.
Yeah, just
and stuff. We're just relieving it
a little bit.
Take some flat into it, and then it gains a lot of room just by a little bit here and there. Depending on how you crush it, you can crush one side in, the other side will still pretty much maintain the portion of it.
And that's, I mean, this project would have been a whole lot easier if it would have been a single type of fuel like methanol or something non-intercooled. You could have put the turbos right here if you wanted and fed it, but we were thinking like one big intercooler. But this car, being a Skylark, there is no room. Like most of the cars you see built, Fox bodies, Camaros, everything, there's some room out in front of the car. There's zero room past the headlight bucket. Like, the grill's right here, the bumper is right here, so you don't gain, you can't put anything out front. You do want as much weight towards the back as you can in some of the race car stuff so they don't get too nose heavy. But that was trying to fit everything in here, have twins, air to water, air conditioning, heater, everything. It's extremely tight, but it's gonna get there. Hopefully, but that's where, like, if that's the one thing you got to give up is the little bit of a pipe in the on the backside of the tire or whatever, then that's where you give up a little bit of your room.
Yeah, and my hood clearance. I did not want to cut my hood whatsoever.
No, we were trying to stay away, but what intake then even do you run? And the turbos might be
right.
They're going to be a little tall.
That's part of when you give and take, and you've only got X by this to squeeze everything into. You just do the best you can. And all I keep telling myself is, I've seen other guys with tighter builds. They import cars, so it's amazing how much room you have, but when you're trying to retain some of the factory type stuff, like say, I've done them before where we had the strut tower on the top, that becomes an issue, like on the Mustangs and Camaros. That is an issue you gotta work around.
So you gain some, but then you lose some.
Yeah, it's a give and take situation, so if it was easy,
everybody do it.
Heck, I guess everybody would be doing it. Or I'd hope they would be, but...
Or you could do it, and there's ways to shove it in there, but to do it to where it still looks nice when you open up the engine bay and it still works. And
yeah, I like all my stuff where it's smooth flowing. When you look at it, it's appealing to the eye. Everything has got a nice flow to it. It's not jagged, weird. It has misflow. Everything is still going off the curve of the pipe. I don't have miscuts where you're trying to bend the pipes to get them to match and all this other...
Camaro only has one of those.
That stuff. Yes, it does.
It only has one, and he didn't like it when I did it, but it's working. It doesn't look the best.
Works. It's just a
no. Whenever
I
you're
have
trying to build
OCD
it.
so bad with everything being symmetrical, everything being somewhat.
And then you get turbos that aren't symmetrical.
Right.
Is a whole other thing.
That's the nature of the beast when you're up
You guys
against
can see on the far one, you got a little bit thicker of a housing. Like that's one thing you got to think about when you're building something like this. Like the thicker part of the housing on that one compared to that one. Just that little bit makes a huge difference on doing this. We could have done like dual fuel and all that and got rid of the intercoolers and all that, but we wanted the car super easy. Like throw pump gas or race gas in it and go play. Yeah, you'll have to add some ice and water and stuff, but otherwise, you don't have to search out for fuel.
I can get that in a loafing jug.
Yeah, when you're getting your pump gas, you can get ice. Some of the issues that people run into on race week and drag week and all those things, and even around here, is finding like ethanol, or if you're methanol, you don't want to carry gallons upon gallons of methanol with you driving down the road in the back of the car. That's not very safe. So, should be a super just drivable deal with the pump gas and pull in wherever you need to, throw gas in it and keep going. If you want to throw somebody the keys to it, they could go do the same thing without having to worry about exactly what's going on. Trying to make it as simple as possible. So it will be single fuel and air to water, but we're hoping to with tons of ideas, right? Like you were talking about building an intercooler that was down in the bottom.
Right.
Trying to do like a one piece.
That's where you're up against with your fans, trying to get it in here to where I'm going to come up and still do the 90. And so if I could get a machine shop that have made me a badass billet one, I've already been that route numerous times. Needless to say, not one of them ever made it onto a car that I built. So nothing against those guys, they're busy and that's just not their thing. But see, you can see I can't even get a 3-inch.
Get a single pipe in there.
I can't even get it into it.
You can't move the radiator any further.
So it basically
no problem
there, but that's one 3-inch pipe.
Yeah,
it's a 4-inch. So at a minimum would have needed to wire them together in the bottom, come up with a 3.5. I thought about coming up off the side, up off my intercooler on this side and come up here and make the turn. And I think that would have worked. But there again, I would have to take my intercooler in the
You
bottom.
still got to get the piping down to it from the turbo
Right.
if you want it there, down to it.
Carry that, I was gonna lay it flat, and I think I could have made it work. And who knows, it might still end up coming back to that where this gets raised back up. I had to lower my radiator, so coming out of my intercoolers, I'm able to come out of the side of them, come over the tops. With the radiator was setting up high, the neck's in the way, hits this here, so then you're either wrapping under here, which that's not gonna work.
Not gonna work.
You're coming up here, getting up high, dropping back down, up over the top of the neck, so then you got another bulge. You'd probably clear in this here instance right here where it would have wrapped completely back around, so that probably wouldn't have been a big deal. I could make that work. But it's trying to make everything where it's somewhat symmetrical, where everything's kind of flowing the same. I can get my water hoses this way, wrapping in the bottom. I was gonna have to drop over, drop down. This way here it's pretty clean and come off a thing right over the side of it. The bottom one's probably gonna be a little tight. I don't think that's a problem. Any of that stuff until I'm probably doing it that day, and then I'm probably gonna
Have to figure something else out.
figure it out. But that's nature of this beast. It's just
But it's coming along. It's getting there,
one thing to the other.
piece by piece,
Try to keep your mind straight and
part by part, or one more part or one less part. But
try to tackle it.
it's getting there. Car, just trying to get it there. We know then once it's done and we get to take it out and test and tune, and like still needs to be, all the plumbing needs to be ran, all the wiring needs to be ran. We ordered some extra sensors for the Holly, back pressure sensor. What was the other one? We're going to watch a coolant temp, back pressure, and then also a coolant pressure sensor to watch for like head gasket failure or whatever when we really start turning the car up. So a few extra sensors in there with the Holly. We are putting the bump box in it, using the new V5 on the Holly, so it'll have everything if we want to change either the gear or the rear tire to help give a little better gear to go possibly drag race it. Thinking like Texas 2K, even use the car down there at like roll racing and everything. We'd like to have the car at Texas 2K 19 here in March. So we're planning on trying to take my car down there. It will be done. And this car down there, hopefully it'll be done. But we're hoping to have them both down there, go play around and cruise around on the streets and take it to the track, do some roll racing, some drag racing, just whatever with the cars. Texas 2K is a pretty cool time, so hopefully we can take them down there. Got a couple other events that we could possibly hit with this before then, but we got to get it done and see where it gets. And there's a whole nother thing with the half mile, right? Like we could probably get it pretty easily to go 170, 180. This car was never designed to go more than like 92 miles an hour from the factory. So the aerodynamics of it's going to be a whole nother thing if we got to build a whole front splitter.
Yeah, I gotta build my blockhouse for the grill still. It's got a lot of things. There's lots of pockets on this thing, like in the bumper, below it, the balance. There's a lot. I got to tackle that. But that's another thing down the.
See, try to get it out, make some power, make a mile an hour, at least start seeing where the car starts wanting to dart around or whatever, and then we can go from
I can
there.
do some cosmetic stuff, do some block offs, have a little more time. First, you got to get the power plant generating some power, driving on its own, and then
Make sure everything works.
right.
Everything's doing what it should be doing, and then go from there, which it should come around pretty fast. I mean, it's all good stuff. It's all,
All in theory, it should. Hopefully, we'll
Every build, though, there's always new car blues. Like, there's always little things when you build a new car that rubbed or didn't work, but trying to take everything into consideration before that point. But yeah, so plumb it, wire it, build them out for it's already got the little mounts, but get the radiator mounted. What else do you got after the intercooler? Build all the intercooler piping. You're going to pull all that out, clean the engine bay,
Yep.
paint it.
Clean the engine bay. I'll probably clean up some of this other stuff. I think I'm going to leave this pretty much. The hood hinges are going to be still retained, so I still want the hood to work under a normal function. There again, so anybody, I can throw them the keys. They can take off. They feel comfortable with driving down. They can still pull the hood.
If they need to check the oil or
Check the
something,
oil.
it's
check the
not, you
stuff.
don't need two people to pull the hood off. That's what we were talking about too, is they're trying to modify the factory hood to put like a cowl in it to where it would fit everything. The turbos are going to have, we just got to figure out how, but they are going to have inlets, fresh air inlets. I tuned my car without them, with like pulling engine bay temp, and then I tuned a car that pulls fresh air, and it is a massive difference. So definitely need to come up with like the little bells or something and put little bells in the hood for fresh air. And then we're trying to think, okay, so you do that. What about when you're driving it on, say, race week or drag week and you get rained on? Or you're driving to Denver or wherever we go with it and you get rained on. So we got to come up with like a little cap so then it just doesn't pour water down into the turbos. One thing to the next to the next. So on these, that was something. So this is going to have a silicone coupler. You see a lot of people fighting back and forth. We're debating on putting silicone there and here, but the distance there probably won't like a silicone coupler. So we ended up getting V-bands, aluminum V-bands for that. And then are you going to run so you're not going to run that little vibrant clamp you're looking at there?
No, those will probably
go here.
Putting those off of the.
You got one of those
off the intercooler.
It's a cool little piece to keep, so you don't have 4,000 pieces of silicone coupling all over the car. Especially when you start talking, I don't know where they figure that silicone couplers start failing, but you see everybody start ripping them or they start failing. So you want to try to keep the silicone as much out of it as much as you can. But you also don't want to tie everything so solid that it starts either trying to break your pipe or putting the turbo into a bind or whatever.
Got this little guy right here.
Yeah, so it's a little like vibrant clamp. It's a pretty clean little deal. It has 2 halves, and then it allows things to float a little more. It's not so stiff.
So you got your
little O-ring.
You got your inside piece where it'll allow it to move. So you got some expansion, you got your move, and within it stuff. So going down the road, going stuff when it gets hot, cold, you're gonna have expansion. If you don't have something, it puts load on it, puts the back pressures on your stuff. So I'll have these right here. As you can tell, they float around.
Yeah, they got quite a bit of movement. So then those will probably be on the intercooler right there. So that'll help with some movement, not tie everything. So at least that piece will be.
And it's relatively easy. If I need to pull a pipe out of here, I pull a quick pin, pop this, pull this piece out of here. I can pop this V-band off. Boom, my turbo's out. This one here. Everything comes apart relatively easy.
The turbos can actually stay in the chassis if I can. I don't know if I can get in there to see it. So you guys might be able to see that little mount. It's a little CNC billet. They call it a Maven or Maven, Performance Maven. It's a little billet mount that the turbo mounts onto, so you can actually, it holds all the way to the turbo. And then you don't have to, right there. It's a little billet mount. Yeah, so this bar right here goes up, ties to one side, then the other side goes and ties to the firewall right there. And then it has a little mount, and then it's already tapped for like an AN drain. So that also needs to be added. We'll end up putting the drains into the oil pan and all that. But it's a nice little piece that you're not just relying on all your tubing for holding the turbo, or you're not trying to tie the turbo off. You just pop those little bolts, and then you can pull the turbo off, or you can unhook everything, and the turbos will stay in the chassis. So a really nice little piece. So I think that's it. Kind of got everybody caught up on the build. More coming soon. Been making quite a bit of progress on it lately. So hopefully gonna hit an event before the end of the year with it. Not trying to go set the world on fire, but just get it out and start working the bugs out of it. Just get it out, drive it, enjoy it. And then we're thinking we'd like to hit some events next year. A couple of the half miles and race week and Texas 2K and all the streetcar kind of events with it, and anything that's like half mile or roll race type of a setup. This car should do really good in any sort of like rear wheel drive class. I'm not trying to go out and set the rear wheel drive half mile record yet. That's 244 that Sal did that we showed. That's moving. That is a crazy deal.
That's very impressive.
Crazy impressive. That's like 91 millimeter turbos and the V10 and all that. But this thing should make tons of power. It just depends. It'd just be nice to have it to where it'll go 200 and standing half mile and be reliable, live for a couple years, and drive the crap out of the thing. So that's it. So I appreciate everybody watching. If you would, please like, subscribe, and we'll get you more videos of this coming, as well as many others. Thank you.